You're listening to the Touchdown Under podcast with Jack, Emilien, Anthony, and Ruth. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Touchdown Under podcast. This is episode 20. I am Jack, your host, and as always, I'm joined by Emilien.
Hey, how's it going?
And Anthony.
Can we have started 20th episode? Oof, nice.
Now, for the second week in a row, we Ruth could not be here, but we are going to once again deliver our podcast as usual. And today is a special one because one of our podcasters, Anthony, it is his birthday today, so we wish him a very happy birthday. And
thank you. Thank you.
Spent during quarantine, but hopefully once we're in the same room again, we can celebrate fittingly, as Emilien said. So this week we are heading into week 5, and there were, obviously, as usual, there were a lot of things of note that happened over the weekend. There are still 4 undefeated teams left after 4 weeks. They are the Chiefs, Packers, Seahawks, and Bills. And it's a curious point. Who do we think will be the first of those teams to lose their first game?
I reckon the Chiefs would be a team that we can clearly say that they'd be the least likely. I think the most likely would probably be either the Bills or the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are definitely deserve to be 4-0, but I feel like they have a lot of close games, and over the last couple of seasons they have had a lot of close games. And I think a freakish play in the last minute of one of the upcoming games could all of a sudden put them 4-1. But nevertheless, I think they definitely deserve to be 4-0. As well, the Bills are in a similar situation. They've had a lot of close games in the last couple of weeks, and I think it could be a split-second play that could change that for them. They could be 4-1 in the blink of an eye.
Well, I think looking at these teams and who they're facing in the next few weeks, the Packers have a bye this week, so if they're to lose a game, it'll be against the Buccaneers in week 6, and I believe that's a game they can definitely lose. I think the Buccaneers are definitely well-equipped to deal with the Packers. The Bills, I think, have the toughest schedule in the next few weeks out of these teams because they have the Titans in Tennessee this week, and after that, they're hosting the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. If the Bills win this game against the Titans, then one of these two teams is going to end up getting their first loss of the season. So I think that's games to toss up. I think the Bills can beat the Chiefs. I think they're definitely underdogs going into that game. With the Seahawks, as you said, Anthony, I do think that they do like to keep it close, but they play the Vikings this week. I don't think they lose that one at home in primetime. Then they play the Cardinals in Arizona. They usually play well in Arizona. So I don't see them losing a game before week 7, which is where their opponents come into play.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, definitely.
I agree as well, Emilien. I feel like if it's a team of those 4 to lose first, I think it is the Bills. If they don't lose this week against the Titans in Tennessee, which I think is a strong possibility, I think they will lose the week after against the Chiefs. They could lose both games because, they're both very strong opponents. But the Bills are playing quite well at the moment. And so, they might win this weekend. But I don't think if they're still undefeated by this time next week, I don't think it'll be the Chiefs. Like I said, with the Seahawks, they do like playing the Vikings at home in prime time. They've had, relative success in the past. I think they continue to win. The Packers, as you said, against the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, I think they probably would manage to pull out the win. So I think it would be between the Vikings and Packers, as you said, Anthony. But I'm leaning towards the sorry, did I say Titans? I meant Bills. I'm leaning towards the Bills as the first of these teams to lose a game. As for the Chiefs, obviously, the Chiefs, I can't see them losing. It's hard to see them losing any game, obviously. So, I don't think they're going to be the first by any stretch. Now, a pretty big piece of news that came out of the week was former head coach, now Bill O'Brien, being fired by the Texans after they lost their 4th straight game to start the season against the Vikings. Now, do we think firing O'Brien was the right move, and how is it going to affect the course of their season?
Look, honestly, I don't think they'll be able to turn around and make the playoffs. I think they're a bit too far behind considering how strong the Colts look right now, as well as the Titans. You also got great other teams in the FC. You know, the Steelers and Browns definitely competing for wildcard spots. Even the Raiders could maybe get there. They're way ahead of the Texans right now. So I think for this season, it's too late for the Texans to turn around. But in the future, this is definitely the best move they could have made because Bill O'Brien has made some very bad decisions as the GM of that team.
Yeah, I feel like losing DeAndre Hopkins, there's no doubt about it. That's the decision that probably cost him his job. I think going 0-4 was just the decision to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins and them going 0-4. It was almost inevitable. It was more likely when they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins. I think the issues with their offensive line, there's an issue that isn't that easy to fix, and I don't think a head coach can just come in and just fix their offensive line straight away. I think that's their biggest issue, no doubt about it. That issue will stay with them for the rest of the season as far as momentum's concerned. I don't think they'll just fix it like that, you know, with a new head coach. So I think, so as long as they've got their offensive line issues, I think we'll see a Texans team that doesn't go above an 8-8 record, especially in an AFC South where you've got teams like, you know, the Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts that are tracking pretty well so far in the season. It'll be really tough for them to get, you know, to even make that last wild card spot be a massive challenge from 0-4.
Yeah, I agree. I can't see the Texans making the playoffs this season. 0-4 is just too deep of a hole to be able to overcome, especially after 4 games now. So it was definitely the right decision. I don't know about you guys, but it's still unbelievable to me that he was both the coach and the GM and was allowed to make such, you know, egregious decisions as the GM. I think his personal relationship with Hopkins affected his decision making, and I think it did definitely play a part in making the choice to trade him away. It was definitely a poor choice, and looking back on it, still was a poor choice. He needs to be fired, and I feel like, as well as his decision making as a GM, he was holding back Deshaun Watson in that offense in terms of offensive play calling, and I think the offense will be freed up a little bit more, and Watson will have more room to roam in terms of, what kind of plays they call now that he's gone. And so I am interested to see how they kind of respond to the firing and see if their level of play improves, because they play the Jacksonville Jaguars at home this weekend, and I feel like they will get their first win. It'd be pretty hard to lose at home to the Jaguars. So, you know, for their sake, I hope we do see a turnaround.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you guys have talked about, you know, how the offense has been underperforming over the past 4 weeks, but I think that defense is just as bad. They really haven't performed to a level where they can really keep the team in the game. I know that they let the Vikings score 31 on them. Granted, the Vikings receivers are definitely playing a lot better. Dalvin Cook obviously had a monster game, but the defense definitely needs to step up, especially the run defense. If the Jags this week can get rookie Robinson going, then they'll control the clock, and that's going to be really tough for the Texans to kind of deal with. Yeah. So the Texans' run defense needs to shut down Robinson early and the Jags' run game early in order for the offense to step up and start controlling the game.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Robinson has been one of the most impressive rookie running backs of 2020. So it will be interesting to see that, you know, kind of match up there. They were, you know, relatively unlucky. They did have a chance to tie the game later against the Vikings. They were very close, but I think 0-4 is a pretty decent indication of their overall performance, you know, thus far this season. So, yeah, I'm expecting to see at least a slight change in overall team performance now that Bill O'Brien is at the door. So we're going to move on to our first segment of the episode this week, and we're going to kick it off with our power rankings for Week 5. And kicking it off at number 32, once again, we have the New York Jets at 31, the Giants, the Jaguars at 30, Washington at 29, the Bengals at 28, the Dolphins at 27, and the Atlanta Falcons come in at 26. The Falcons are 0-4 now on the season as well. And Emilien, every time the Falcons lose, I'm going to come back and ask you about your preseason prediction that the Falcons would go 9-7. Now, surely, I know last week you still said you thought they'd go 9-7. This week, they're 0-4. Are they still going to go 9-7?
Not a chance. I've given up on them. There's no way they'll be able to go 9-7. Even if they do there's no chance it's enough to get into the playoffs. As I said, I also predicted them to be a surprise wildcard team. I can't see it happening right now. I think just they're all over the place. Their injuries are insane on the defensive side. But even then, they just haven't been playing up to the standard I expected them from. I know Anthony also predicted them to go 9-7, make the playoffs, but it's not going to happen. There's too much competition in the NFC. They haven't played a division rival yet, and I reckon they're going to lose most of those games. So yeah, there's no chance, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up about the competition within the NFC. They've played 4 NFC opponents so far. They conceded 38 points to the Seahawks in week 1, 40 to the Cowboys, 30 to the Bears, and 30 to the Packers. I think that defense is obviously the biggest issue they have at the moment. There's no doubt about it. And I think, especially against the game against the Cowboys, I think that kind of sums up where they're at so far in the season, where they had that big lead going into the fourth quarter, and they gave it up in shocking fashion to the Cowboys. And I think that kind of just shows how, no matter how good your offense is or how reliable it is, if you have a defense that will concede points quickly in the NFL, you're going to have a tough start. And going 0-4 just shows how much they're missing on the defense side of the ball.
It's a good point, Anthony. Obviously, their defense is getting exposed. They have played a couple of really high-powered offenses in Seattle and Green Bay, but they are really battered on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that's definitely contributed to their 0-4 start. I like your point as well, Emilien, about them not having played any division games yet, because you would have thought with how the other 3 teams in the NFC South are playing so far that they're looking at, I think they're looking at least 4 division losses this season, because even the Panthers are looking better than them so far. The Saints are going to beat them both times, I would have said, and same with the Buccaneers. So, they're in quite a hole this season, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see Dan Quinn get shown the door at some stage. On to 25, and then we have the Lions, and at 24, the Panthers, who we just talked about. Now, they're going, I'd say they're going much better than we expected them to. They've now knocked over the Chargers and Cardinals in their last 2 games. Emilien, I know you didn't have high hopes at all for the Panthers this season. Do you think they're going to be a better team than we all expected?
Oh, they're definitely going to be a better team than I expected. I expected them to go 13-3. I think I thought that the loss of Keegan would be huge to their 2020 season, but they've proven me wrong. I'm not afraid to say that. They're definitely playing well. Teddy Bridgewater is doing a lot better than I expected him to. They're handling, and they're doing this without McCaffrey. Let's keep that in mind. They're doing that without the best player in the league. And I think that actually helps them because they rely less on him. So they're using a bit more of their weapons. They're extending the game a bit more. And their defense has been pretty good. 2 big wins in a row. I'm very happy with them. Now, I don't know about where you guys had them. I think you guys maybe had them around like 5-11, 6-10. I definitely think I think with this, they could potentially, I'm not saying they will, they could potentially go 8-8. I don't think they'll get a winning record though, once they start facing tougher teams, specifically those native.
Yeah, I think at the moment it's clear to see that the Panthers are getting some kind of momentum, having won 2 games in a row. But I feel like they're playing the Falcons next week in Atlanta and then the Bears in Chicago. I think these 2 games are absolutely crucial for their season. I think if they can get a win in 2 of them, I think we can take the Panthers much more seriously. I think if they get 2 losses out of these next 2 games, I think we can almost write them off as just being an inconsistent team, and we'll look to go maybe 8-8 at best. But if they can beat these 2 teams, it's likely that they can get a wildcard spot. Especially once they get McCaffrey back, who will come back in within 2 to 3 weeks. I think their offense will click, and with momentum, everything will fall in place. And I think these next 2 weeks are absolutely crucial for their chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, you guys mentioned McCaffrey, of course, and Mike Davis has really stepped up both in the passing and running game at the running back position, and so that has really helped their offense, and Teddy Bridgewater by extension, and he has been pretty impressive, as you said, Emilien. I don't know how much stock to put into these last 2 wins just yet, but as you said, Anthony, these next couple of weeks will tell a better story of how their season is going to pan out. But in terms of preseason predictions, Emilien, I definitely had them last in the division. I would have had them, something like a 4-12 or 5-11 kind of record. So, it looks like, or at least to this point, it looks like it may have been proven wrong so far. At 23, we have the Broncos. At 22, the Chargers. At 21, the Vikings. And sitting at number 20, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who got their first win of the season against the 49ers in San Francisco. Now, the Cowboys are 19 on our rankings. And so these two teams, obviously, this time last week, we probably would have said that the Cowboys were the favorites in this division, considering the play of the Eagles. But now it's a bit more up in the air. Who do you guys think is the favorite to win the NFC East?
Cowboys.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah.
For me, it's easily the Cowboys. I think their offense is really, really good. I think they've got weapons at every position, pretty much, barring tight end. But still, it's just that defense. That defense needs to get it together because you can't let a team like the Browns score 49 on you when you're at home. But the Eagles, that game was hard to watch. I mean, it was not a good game of football, if you know what I mean. I think the 49ers, they're not a good team. They had Kittleback. It was his first game back. He played well, but beating the 49ers isn't that big of a deal right now for the Eagles, but they are standing at the top of their division somehow at 1-2-1. So I still think that the Cowboys, if they were to match up right now, if they were to play the Eagles right now, the Cowboys would win, I'd say, pretty easily, just because that offense is too stacked for the Eagles to handle, and their offense is not good enough to capitalize on that weak Cowboys defense.
Yeah. I think right now, whilst I understand that it's easy to say that being the 49ers, given all their injuries and their form, it's easy to say that wasn't that good of a win. And I get you, I understand that point, but I feel like this whole division at the moment is just way too inconsistent, and the form just isn't there with any team to say that one team is definitively better than the other. Whilst I do agree that that Cowboys offense, especially in that game against Cleveland, where they were down by, I believe, 20 or 18, it was quite a lot going into that last quarter, and they came back. They were within 2 points at one stage, I believe. And so I think their offense is probably that factor that would prove them to be slightly better than the Eagles, but that could all change next week, where the Cowboys could put out a terrible performance, and so could the Eagles. I just really don't know with this division. I can't give you a definitive answer on that.
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm still backing in the Eagles. I predicted them to win this division comfortably and be among the top team, one of the top teams in the NFC. Obviously, they're not one of the top teams right now, and injuries do have a really big part to play in that. But they have kind of owned this division the last few years, and I'm going to back them in to continue to own this division. The Cowboys have a lot of issues on defense, especially their run defense. It's atrocious. Obviously, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and Dearness Johnson all went nuts on that Cowboys run defense, and I think it's going to be a continuing issue unless something's done about it. The offense, as you said, Emilien, is pretty good. It has the potential to be a high-powered offense, but like we talked about with the Falcons, without a defense, a high-powered offense, can only get you so far as a team. Yeah. So yeah, at this point, I'm going to back in the Eagles. I think getting the win against the 49ers, while it was, we call it an ugly win, I feel like getting the win was hugely important to the season nevertheless, and getting the win, I think, could, kickstart some momentum, because last two games they haven't lost. So, we'll see if they can continue down the right track. At 18 with the Texans, and we talked about how Bill O'Brien being fired could impact them, but at the moment they sit at 18. At 17 with the Raiders, and at 16 with the Cleveland Browns. Now, after an 0-2 start, they have, really gotten into a groove, I feel like, especially on offense with Baker Mayfield in the running game. So what do you guys think about the Browns? Like, do you think they're going to, kind of reach our expectations, because we had lofty expectations for them this season. Do we think they can reach them?
Based on what we've seen the past few weeks, I would say yes, but Nick Chubb is out for a pretty long time. I'd say 6 to 8 weeks, I believe. I could be wrong. But now it's because they've been doing well, the less Baker throws. I think that was the key, getting their run game going and limiting sort of Baker's throwing. Now it's going to be interesting to see if Kareem Hunt can take that load and really become that like primary ball carrier that we saw he was in Kansas City. But even then, in that team, it's still pass heavy. So we'll see how the Browns go. I think their offense is going to take a little bit of a hit, but if OBJ can play, not obviously exactly like he did against Cowboys, but to that sort of similar level, to that sort of elite receiver that we expect him to be, and the rest of the Browns offense can lift themselves up, I think they have a very good shot at potentially coming second in the division, depending on how they go against the Steelers and Bengals in their future games. But I am very impressed with the Browns right now.
Yeah, I feel like the point I made about the Panthers earlier on about how their last 2 wins have been very good, and I think if they can win their next 2 games, we could definitely say that they're a team that could make the playoffs.
I think now with Chubb out for a long period of time, I think there's a real possibility that we see like a revitalization of Kareem Hunt's career. Obviously, he had his troubles off the field in Kansas City, and he's kind of been playing in the shadow of Nick Chubb so far in Cleveland. But now he's got his chance to really kind of remind everyone how good he is and how good he was, coming to the NFL. So, yeah, I think I said at the start they started 0-2. They started 0-1, but that loss against the Ravens was concerning. But since then, they have played some really promising football, and Baker Mayfield seems to have, kind of found that connection with Odell Beckham, who had his best game, you've got to say, as a Brown. So yeah, the Browns are at 16. At 15 with the Bears, at 14 the Cardinals, at 13 with the Rams, the 49ers coming at 12, Patriots at 11, the Colts at 10, Titans at 9, Steelers at 8, and at 7 we have the Buffalo Bills. And the Bills are 4-0. They won against the Raiders in Las Vegas this past week, and Josh Allen and that squad have been playing really good football so far. How far do we think the Bills can go this season based on their undefeated start?
I'm going to be honest. I think they can definitely go to the AFC Championship. Their offense is absolutely insane right now. Josh Allen is playing at an extremely good level. Their weakness is the defense, and I think going into the season, none of us would have expected that to be the case. Josh Allen is connecting with all of his targets. He's playing so well right now. His accuracy is off the charts compared to his previous 2 seasons. It's just that defense. If that defense can sort of get going and start to see their 2019 form, this Bills team can go very far, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with you, Emilien. I think the Bills are in a good place at the moment at 4-0. 4-0 is always, the best place you can be at this stage of the season. And I think the teams that come up against, they're definitely not easy opponents. So there's massive challenges ahead of them. And whilst I think the AFC Championship game is probably, I don't know, I feel like they could be a little bit beyond them. Maybe at their best they could achieve that. I think maybe it's a bit early for them to confidently say they can make the AFC Championship game. But I think the next couple of weeks will be really important to see where they're at. We're at roughly the quarter mark of the season. So I think from here, we'll see teams really start to either show that they're pretenders or show that they're real. I think that's where we'll see where the Bills are at.
Yeah, I've said this at the start of the season, and I'm going to continue to say it. The Bills, their play is always going to be riding on the way Josh Allen plays, and so far he's been playing at a really high level. And the Bills' overall team play has been reflecting that, and so I think he's got to keep up this really good play for them to kind of go as far as the championship game, as you guys say. I don't think they'll go that far, but and I do think we eventually see a bit of a drop in play from Allen and the Bills at some stage, because you can't be playing at this level for the entire season. So when they do hit that point, and it could be in the coming weeks, because they do play against the Titans and Chiefs in the next couple of games, we will see who this Bills team truly is, and whether they're going to be able to overcome some slumps that potentially may occur this season. At 6 with the Saints, at 5 with the Buccaneers, and at 4 with the Green Bay Packers, and at 3 the Seattle Seahawks. Now, the Packers and Seahawks sitting at 4th and 3rd, respectively. They are undoubtedly the 2 best teams in the NFC right now. And what I want to ask you guys is, who out of these 2 teams is the best team currently in the NFC?
Well, I think if they were to go head to head in a match right now, I think the winner would be whoever's at home. I think that's really the case right now. I think that the Seahawks offense looks borderline unstoppable, as does the Packers offense. The difference is the Seahawks defense is considerably weaker, but I'd say a lot of that is because of injuries. We have seen that Jamal Adams is a huge key playmaker for them, and he was out for most of the second half, I think, of the Cowboys game and all of the Dolphins game. I think Trey Flowers is a liability at cornerback. If they had Quinn Dunbar in there, they'd definitely see a lot more positives out of that defense. So the Packers also right now, they're doing really well without Kenny Clark, and that's huge. That is absolutely incredible. Also without Devontae Adams, they're one of their best players, obviously. So I think the Packers have the edge right now. I do think the Packers are a little bit better, and I'd say that because of the concerning injuries on the Seahawks defense.
Yeah, I agree, Emilien. I think another point worth bringing up is that the Packers, obviously, they played the Saints in Week 3. Apart from that, they haven't really played anyone that's been too difficult. They've played the Vikings in Week 1, the Lions, then this week they played the Falcons. But the thing with those games, they haven't been low-scoring games from the Packers. They've scored a lot of points, and they've done it consistently as well. So that, especially they obviously have Devontae Adams, is, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league. But since he's been injured, they have to play with lesser skilled players, and Aaron Rodgers is getting it done, and he's getting it done quite comfortably as well. I think Aaron Jones takes a lot of that pressure off. They can't go unnoticed. It's not all just Aaron Rodgers getting it done, scoring nearly 35 points on average every single game. I think the Packers probably are the better team, but I do agree with you, Emilien, that it's so close that I reckon whoever is playing at home would probably be the favourite to win. But I think just going off the roster, I would be slightly more inclined to go with the Packers just because of the balance they've got in between the receivers and the run game at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with your points, guys. It probably would come down to who is the home team. Even without the fans, I think home field would probably determine the winner. Anthony, in terms of your point about Aaron Jones, you're right. Obviously, Aaron Jones has been, superb so far this season, as well as Rodgers. But I think a lot of the plaudits should also go to the offensive line in Green Bay, because they've been able to create a lot of holes for the running backs. Jamal Williams and AJ Dillon, as well as Jones, and also have been really they stood up really well in pass protection, which obviously helps Rodgers. And Rodgers has been able to, he's been getting the time that he needs to make the throws that he can make, and that's pretty lethal, because if you give him enough time, he can do whatever he wants with the ball, no matter who's in the field or not. Whether Devontae Adams,
I think it's a quick point I just want to bring up quickly. I was going to mention about how obviously the Texans are 0-4, the Packers are 4-0. Whilst obviously there's a lot of difference between the two teams. I think the offensive line. This is a scenario where it just shows how valuable having a solid offensive line is. Whilst the Packers have more weapons on offense, I think if the Texans had a solid offensive line with Deshaun Watson and his rushing ability, we'd definitely see a Texans team that I think would be at least 2-2 and could have really pushed the Ravens and Chiefs in their matchups earlier on. So I think this really shows what a good offensive line can do, and what the Texans are missing, and what the Packers are utilizing, to the best of their advantage at the moment.
I think we could point, Anthony, about the Texans' offensive line play. I feel like most of their issues with the offensive line is at guard, at their guard positions, and at the interior offensive line, because they do get pretty good tackle play out of Larry Tunsil and the opposing tackle. I can't remember his name, but they have been standing up reasonably well in pass protection, whereas it's been the guard play from the Texans that's kind of let them down, and the interior pass rush of the opposition has kind of been able to really put some pressure on Deshaun Watson and obviously force him in the pocket. But back to the point about the Packers and Seahawks. They've both got offensive lines that can, give their quarterbacks enough time to do what they want with the football. And so, it's no surprise to see, obviously the quarterbacks have to be good, and there's some superb quarterbacks, those two. But it's no surprise to see why they're the two best teams in the NFC right now. Now, our top two remains the Ravens at second and the Chiefs at number one. They both won. I don't think there's much to talk about here with these two teams. We know how good they both are. The Ravens bounced back well after a loss against the Chiefs last week, and the Chiefs are just continuing their merry way. Even after being stalled offensively in the first half against the Patriots, they do what they do, and they still put up 26 on that above average Patriots defense. So that is our power rankings for week 5. Okay, so we're going to move on to our second segment for today's episode, and that is Anthony's Q&A. And Anthony, Emilien's going to ask the first question.
Alrighty, Anthony. First question is, which teams that have had losing starts can turn their season around?
Yeah, I reckon for this question, I'm probably going to say Cowboys, because we mentioned it earlier on. I think whilst I do agree that their offense is bordering on elite with more consistency, I think, and given that the NFC East is so wide open at the moment, I think they'll play obviously each NFC East team twice, and I think they'll give them some wins. I don't think the Cowboys have. It doesn't matter about how their defense is tracking. If you're going to play teams like Washington twice, New York twice, even Philadelphia twice, you're bound to get at least an 8-8 record with the offense they have. But it's still worth noting that their defense, they've considered an average of 36.5 points this season, which is, any defensive coordinator would be absolutely, that's a shocking way to start your season from a coaching point of view. But I think once that, I think the offense will overpower those lesser teams. Whilst they do have a lot of tougher opponents or 50-50 matchups that can go either way, I think the Cowboys are a team that they can rally and get an 8-8 record relatively easy in such a weak division. So I'd be looking for them to be a team that currently have a losing record to then make amends and win the division, whether that be an 8-8 win or perhaps even win the division at 7-9. I think winning the division full stop is a win from a team of how they're tracking at the moment.
The second question, Anthony, is which team has surprised you the most so far?
Yeah, I think for me, it probably has to be the Packers going at 4-0, because I think early in the season, before the season, we went over our rankings of our predictions for the season. I think most of us ruled out the Packers definitively winning the NFC North. We didn't have them not winning it. I thought it'd be a lot more of a struggle. But at the moment, at 4-0, they've proven to us that they are perhaps the best team in the NFC full stop. Like, not just within the North, the whole conference. I think we thought that drafting a receiver would really hurt them, but Aaron Rodgers has proven otherwise. He's utilized players like Alden Lazard and Equanimous St. Brown brilliantly. Even with Devontae Adams injured, they've consistently put up over 35 points week in, week out against no matter what the team they've gone up against. I think Aaron Jones is another. I mentioned before, Aaron Jones has been a player that has really taken that pressure off their throwing game, and I think they've really surprised us. I know Jack would be definitely surprised about how they've gone so far this season, going 4-0.
Well, I guess
You have to be.
I didn't expect them to win the Saints game, but the other games that they've won have been, probably games that would have considered winnable for them. But, obviously you guys know I didn't predict them to win the division. I predicted them to regress. I didn't think they'd play very well in Matt LaFleur's second year as head coach. But I thought it'd be a few more, tensions or rumblings in terms of Aaron Rodgers' relationships with the head coach and with a GM. But, it seems like they have a good relationship, him and the head coach. It shows because there's a lot of chemistry in terms of the play calling and how Rodgers is executing on the field. So, yeah, the level of play surprised me. I probably would have expected them to be more around 3-1 or 2-2 at this point. But yeah, no, they've been really good. They've proved you wrong.
Yeah, to make a quick point, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's having a lot of fun out there, and that's really important. I think it allows him to play a bit more relaxed and really just ease into the games and just have a good time throwing the ball, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's less stressed. He's not forcing anything, and it seems to be working out really well for them. So, all power to him.
Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, Anthony. Last question for you is: how worried are you about the Cardinals?
Yeah, I feel like I'm not sure whether or not at the quarter mark of the season, whether or not the season should be really ringing alarm bells with losing their last 2 games to the Panthers and to the Lions. I think it is an issue for them. The Cardinals aren't tracking the way we expected them to be tracking. Given that they won against the 49ers in Week 1, I think our expectations for them lifted dramatically after that win, and we thought that getting a playoff spot would be a realistic target for them. But the defense is letting them down. I think conceding 26 points to the Lions and 31 points to the Panthers, if they're going to want to aim for a wild card spot or a playoff spot, they can't expect to be conceding that many points to teams like the Panthers and Lions. They need to be. The defense needs to keep them in the games in the same way that I've talked about the Falcons over the last couple of weeks. The defense is really hurting them, and I think Kyler Murray is also taking a hit to his game, to his form, because of the defense. I think, again, especially in that Lions game when they lost by 3 points, he threw 3 interceptions in that game. And I think for a man, Emilien, you said, I believe earlier in the season, preseason, you mentioned that he would be the likely candidate for MVP. I think it's a possibility. I think even at the moment, it is still a possibility. I think he really needs to improve on his last couple of performances. I think you've got the Jets and the Cowboys next couple of weeks. They are definitely winnable games, especially against the Jets. So I think if I was to say how worried I was out of 10 for the Cardinals at the moment, I'd be about a 5, just because it's early in the season. There's plenty of time to turn the season around. It's not like they've got an 0-4 record and the season's beyond them at this point. They're 2-2. They've got winnable games. I would not be worried at this point, but they need to win the next couple of games for me to kind of stem the flow of concern coming out of Phoenix.
Yeah. So just Anthony, want to clarify. Jack made the MVP prediction about Kyler Murray, but I did have Kyler Murray as one of my sophomore leaps, and I agree with you. I do think he's going to improve over these last 2 weeks. He definitely had a strong start to the season. I expect him to bounce back sometime soon. And it starts with the Jets. It starts with the Jets this week.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. Now, that wraps up Anthony's Q&A for this week. And we're going to move on to our next segment, which is Multi-Madness. And for the second straight week, we have copped an L. We haven't been able to cash in this last fortnight, but this week we have once again got 5 more legs, 5 winners who, obviously we think have a pretty decent chance of winning. Our first leg is the Texans to beat the Jaguars at home, and I think this is pretty much a shoo-in. Deshaun Watson, I don't think he's going to let this team go 0-5 to start the season and lose at home against Jacksonville. I just cannot see it happening. And like I said earlier, I think we're going to see a bit of a change in terms of the freedom of the offensive play calling, and I think it's going to positively affect Watson and his offense not only this week but for the rest of the season. So I think the Texans are a safe pick.
Yeah, well, I agree. Yeah. Sorry, Anthony. I do agree that the Texans should win this game, right? I don't see them losing, but if James Robinson gets going, if the Jaguars can dominate the Texans on the ground, this has potential to be a lot closer than it should be. And I don't think the Texans are going to lose. I think Deshaun Watson's too good to let this game slip away from them. I don't think the Texans go 0-5 to start the season, but the Jags do have the potential to make it a lot closer than it should be.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think in our discussions before the episode, I was a bit avid about not selecting a game with the Jaguars. I think obviously in this matchup, I definitely think the Texans would win over the Jaguars. I think that there's room for an upset, and it all starts with the run game, as you mentioned, Emilien. They can control that run game. Goes for nearly every team in any game, no matter how one side of the odds are. If you can get that ground game going against any opponent, you can create an upset. And I think the Jaguars do have the potential to do that. But I think, as I said before, the Texans are that safe pick in this matchup.
Now, our second leg is the Cardinals to beat the Jets. We just talked about Kyler Murray and the Cardinals and how we think they're going to kind of gain some momentum back this week after a couple of weeks, of less than stellar play. So the Cardinals, I think we're going to see a bounce back performance from not only Kyler Murray but the defense, which has been pretty disappointing so far.
I think Jets are not tracking well at all. There's no way anything they've done so far this season has been positive. I think that all comes down to their head coach. So that being said, I think the Cardinals are in a prime position to win this. There's not much to say. I just think the Jets are tracking well enough to really put up much of a fight against Arizona.
Third leg of our multi this week is the Steelers to beat the Eagles. Now, the Eagles have had a week off as their game against the Titans last week was postponed, and I think, I think the Steelers should be able to topple the Eagles. I think Big Ben and that offense should be able to kind of carve up that secondary a bit. Obviously, we know about the Eagles' injuries. I'm not sure the Eagles are going to be able to come into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers.
Oh, yeah. And on the other side of the ball, the Steelers' defense is going to be all over Carson Wentz and that offense. I don't see any scenario where Wentz is able to play out of this world in order to overcome the Steelers' defense. I think Steelers' defense is just too strong right now, and they've rested for a week. They weren't the ones with the COVID issues, so they've been practicing. They've been having team meetings in person, all that. So they're going to come out guns blazing here, I reckon, and I think they should take care of business.
I think a big factor of that win that the Eagles got against the 49ers, I don't think I saw it. Nick Mullins threw that pick six. That was he didn't target anyone near. There wasn't a 49ers player anywhere near where he was throwing to. The Eagles won't have that luxury against the Steelers with Big Ben. He's a reliable quarterback. We all know that. He's been playing in the league for years. There's so many factors that will point towards the Steelers' victory here. You've got they've had the full training session. They've had the bye. They've effectively had a bye week. This week they had the bye week this week. And yeah, that the Eagles offense with all the injuries they've had, there's just no way that they'll have any wiggle room in this matchup to potentially put up an upset. I'll even go as far as to say this could be a blowout, but just keep your eyes on it.
Our fourth leg is the Browns to beat the Colts at home. The Colts came off a really solid defensive performance against the Bears, which they won. And obviously we talked about the Browns and how good they were offensively and on the ground against the Cowboys. So it's going to be a really interesting matchup in terms of the Browns' run game versus the Colts' run defense led by DeForest Buckner. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a pretty tight game, but I think the Browns' offense will be able to kind of shine through eventually, and playing at home in front of your fans helps as well. So I think the Browns, and we talked about the Browns kind of, building momentum and continuing to kind of gain momentum as they've won these last couple of games. So I think they do win.
I honestly think the Colts are going to win this, and I say that because I think their run defense is definitely going to be able to slow down the Browns' rushing attack now that they don't have Nick Chubb. And that's going to force Baker Mayfield to throw. And with Baker Mayfield throwing, he's going to have a really tough time against that Colts secondary that has really shown up these last few weeks. That being said, I do think the Browns can win this, but I know we picked them because it boosted our odds a little more at 220, I think. So I think this game goes either way. I do think the Colts have the slight edge, but happy to be proven wrong and for the Browns to win this one for the sake of our multi.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, the thing with Nick Chubb, while Nick Chubb is, a really good talent and, it's a beast of a running back, I think Kareem Hunt is just as good, if not better, talent-wise as Nick Chubb. So I don't think Chubb being out is going to have as big of an impact as we think. I think Kareem Hunt working behind that offensive line, which has been able to create holes for this Cleveland running game, obviously you're going to have a harder task of it up against, one of, if not the best run defense in the league in the Colts. But I think they're going to be able to generate enough offense with OBJ kind of hitting the straps now as well, so that, this leg comes through for us. Now, the final leg of this week's multi is the Seahawks to beat the Vikings. And previously, the Seahawks have had success at home against the Vikings in primetime, and this fixture has been pretty kind to them. So, and obviously, you got to look at the form of both teams. The Seahawks have been amazing. Obviously, discussed, they're a top 2 team in the NFC right now, while the Vikings, despite getting their first win of the season, have been largely disappointing throughout the first month of the season. So, I think the Vikings are going to have a really tough, I think it's going to be really tough for them to get a win on the road in Seattle against a team like the Seahawks, who are, full of momentum right now. They're just steamrolling.
Yeah, I think this game will be won by the Seahawks, but just on the matchup between the Seahawks offense and the Vikings defense. I think the Vikings last week against the Texans, they finally got that. They had it going against the Titans as well. They had that pass game. It kind of lagged a little bit in the first couple of weeks. The run game was definitely there, but I think it got going against the Titans, and it showed up against the Texans as well. It will be there against the Seahawks, no doubt about it, but especially with Russell Wilson, they're going to pick apart the rookie cornerbacks in Holton Hill. It's going to be, it won't be a blowout, but I think those rookie cornerbacks, they're just still too inexperienced for Minnesota. So I think going up against Russell Wilson, I think there's potential for the Vikings defense will get torn apart, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I do agree with you on that point. I think this is going to be a shootout, and it's going to be a one-score game. And the reason I say is the Seahawks, if Jamal Adams is out, I think that Justin Jefferson, as a rookie right now, he's been really good the last 2 weeks. He's really emerging in that number 2 wide receiver role. And Adam Thielen, of course, is a great wide receiver. They are going to dominate that Seattle secondary if Jamal Adams is out, and especially if Quinton Dunbar, if he's out. You've got Trey Flowers on the other side, and he has been terrible the past few weeks. He's been absolutely dominated in coverage. So Justin Jefferson and Thielen, look out for them to start dominating. Dalvin Cook, I don't think he's going to be that big of a factor. The Seahawks' run defense is 4th best in the league, I reckon. They neutralized Ezekiel Elliott. So I don't think Dalvin Cook is going to be too much of a factor in this game. I think maybe in the receiving game, he'll be pretty good. But in terms of rushing the ball, the Vikings aren't going to get it done, I think. I think it's going to be – they're going to be very reliant on Kirk Cousins airing it out to Thielen and Jefferson. On the other side of the ball, I think, obviously, as I said, Anthony, Wilson is going to make absolute mincemeat of that Vikings secondary. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I do think it's a shootout. Both teams score at least 30 points, one-score game.
Interesting.
Enough. That is our multi for week 5. Those are our 5 legs. If you guys are planning to put a bet on, please gamble responsibly. On to our next segment, which is Emilien's team to watch for week 5. Emilien, take it away.
Thanks, Jack. All right. So first, I'll recap my team to watch last week, and that was the Cincinnati Bengals. They got the win at home against Jacksonville. Joe Burrow's first career win, and he got exactly what he needed, and that was help. Joe Mixon had a monster day. He had over 150 total yards, I think. Joe Burrow, he had some time in the pocket. The Jags' pass rush wasn't that good, and Joe Burrow capitalized on that. The Jags got the win there. My team to watch this week is none other than the Indianapolis Colts. I think they have the best defense in the league right now. I think they're up there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as the best defense in the league. They haven't played any great teams yet. I think their first true challenge really was the Bears last week, and they did really well there. They neutralized the offense completely. I reckon they held them to like 35 rushing yards or something. Incredible defensive performance there. This week they've got the Browns, as we've said, and the Browns have scored 30-plus points in each of their last 3 games. It'll be interesting to see how well they do against the Colts. They haven't played a good defense since week 1 against the Ravens, so this is their first true test since then. We'll see how they go. I'm hoping to see a very entertaining game between the two.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how a lot of teams this season have scored a lot more points than like the scoring as a whole has been up across the whole league. It's interesting to see. I wonder if I don't know what it is. It's been obviously the main factor that's been different to this season compared to others is the whole COVID situation. But I'm interested, Emilien, can you put your finger on why that may be the reason why teams are scoring a lot more, such as the Browns?
I think it's definitely got to do with the fans not being there. I think penalties are definitely taking a lot less. There are a lot less penalties at the line of scrimmage. And also, I think that it's all about teams being able to make offensive and defensive adjustments without being interrupted by the crowd. Players can hear each other. They can hear their audibles. There's a lot less miscommunication that would usually end up in a lot more fourth downs and a lot more punting and a lot more turnovers. So it's definitely the fans not being there. I think that's definitely the cause for a lot more high scoring.
Yeah, definitely.
I agree. That is Emilien's team to watch for week 5. Now, on to TDU's game of the week. We have chosen the Tennessee Titans versus the Buffalo Bills. Now, there was some doubt over whether this game would proceed due to the Titans' COVID outbreak, but it looks to be more under control, at least, knock on wood. So this is our game of the week. As usual with this segment, we are going to break down the 4 key components of this matchup, and Anthony's going to kick it off with who he thinks is the better offense.
Yeah, so for me at the moment, I'm going to go with the Bills offense. I think Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and the form that Josh Allen is in, I think whilst it is close in between the Titans and the Bills in terms of who has a better offense, I think just that wide receiver quarterback matchup we have in Buffalo is probably a little better than what Ryan Tannehill has in Tennessee. So I think in a game where we'll see, I think the run game will be very important. I think that edge that the Bills can take off, they can have against the Titans in that passing game will prove to be a lot more beneficial and a lot more explosive in this matchup. I think it's worth noting that the probably for me, I reckon the better defense is probably the Bills if they can get back to that 2019 level of play. And the reason I say that is if we get a similar kind of output from what they had last year, I think the Titans will struggle to a certain extent. I think the Titans will have a harder time on offense than the Bills will having to go up against the Bills defense. So I think the Bills have a better offense and will have probably a little bit easier time just based on that receiver quarterback matchup they have.
So I've got better defense and better coaching this week. So for better defense, I feel like both teams have quite a solid defense. The Bills' defense is a little bit banged up, and so I feel like the Titans do have the upper hand in this category. They have a really solid secondary, and their defensive line has been bolstered, obviously, by the addition of Jadeveon Clowney. And so I feel like as that defense continues to mesh and, Clowney continues to, get comfortable with that defensive scheme, I feel like it's going to get better. And so I feel like better defense goes to the Titans in this matchup. As for coaching, I like both coaches quite a lot here. Since he came in to Buffalo, Sean McDermott has really done wonders for his team. He's put Josh Allen in a position where where he's comfortable with the offense. The play calling, Josh Allen is able to execute, to a reasonably high standard, and this season, especially so far, to an exceptionally high standard. And so he's been really great. But I think, again, I'm going to go with the Titans here for better coaching. Mike Vrabel has been really quite amazing, especially last year. Obviously he's behind that Titans unexpected kind of surge to the AFC Championship game. And so I think he's the better coach. And they are better coached, I feel like, because they have been able to put Ryan Tannehill in a position where he can effectively and efficiently throw the ball. Their offense isn't just relying on Derrick Henry on the run, on the ground. Sorry, the offense allows Tannehill to kind of shine as well. And I think coaching is a really big reason for that. And so I'm going to go with the Titans here for better coaching.
Alrighty. I've got momentum this week, and I think it's very obvious. I'm going Buffalo Bills any day. the Titans, they've had to stop all in-facility meetings and training and all that. So they're definitely, it's a bye week, but it's not the one you want. You can't, like, they haven't been able to practice this week and all that. So the Bills, I'm going to go with them. Obviously, they're 4-0. They've had 4 straight wins. Their offense is incredible right now. They're one of the highest. They're arguably one of the best offenses in the league right now. Josh Allen is playing out of this world. His chemistry with Cole Beasley, I think, is very underrated. They have an incredible connection. And dare I say, I think Josh Allen, for me right now personally, is the most exciting player to watch in the NFL. I think his movement in the pocket this season has been really good. And the fact that he's been able to connect with his receivers in a bunch of different circumstances, whether it be on the deep ball, short routes, on the run, all that. He's been very good. And I think he's going to be able to carry that momentum into week 5. And he's going to start, really proving himself as one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. He's having an MVP type season so far. So momentum goes with the Bills here. I think they carry that momentum into week 5 and potentially beyond that against the Chiefs in week 6, which is also going to be very interesting to see.
So our game picks really quickly. I think the Titans get up. I think the Bills take their first loss, as we kind of speculated about at the start of the show in terms of 4-0 teams. So I think the Titans win.
I've got the Bills. I think their offense is too much for the Titans to handle, and their defense is capable to sort of limit the Titans' offense. Yeah,
I agree with you, Emilien. I'll make the same point there. I think, the Bills will be too much to handle for the Titans' defense. I think 3-point victory for the Bills in this one.
Great. Interesting. I've got the more 10-point victory for the Bills. I think they win this one relatively easily. I think they are the better team right now.
I think 20-17 Titans. On to our final segment for this week's episode, and that is Jack's real overreaction. And the guys are going to put some statements forward to me, and I'm going to respond real or overreaction.
Alrighty, Jack, the first statement. Tua needs to start in the next few weeks.
That's real. It depends on what we consider the next few weeks. I think within the next month or so, he should probably get his first start, especially if the Dolphins can't get a win or two out of the next 4 games. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure who they're playing in his next couple of weeks, but I feel like either way, Tua should, he should be on the field soon.
The Browns without Nick Chubb are still an offensive powerhouse.
Yeah, that's real. As I mentioned, I really like Kareem Hunt still, and I think he's just as good of a running back option as Nick Chubb. He's got more speed than Nick Chubb as well. I think he's better at receiving out of the backfield as well. So honestly, I think I feel like Hunt is the better player. He's the better talent, but obviously due to his off-field issues, he's kind of had to restart. And I think he's going to get his time to shine now that Chubb is out for a long period of time. So that is real.
Alrighty, the Buccaneers are now the best team in the NFC, despite the Week 1 loss to the healthy Saints.
As an overreaction, Emilien, as we discussed, the 2 best teams in the NFC are the Packers and the Seahawks. And the best, I think, I'm going to go with the Packers. So no, it is not the Buccaneers. That is an overreaction.
The Vikings will bounce back and make the playoffs.
That's an overreaction, Anthony. I think they might have been able to if their schedule was a bit easier, but I think they're destined for a loss against the Seahawks this week. And 1-4 is pretty insurmountable in terms of coming back and making the playoffs. So I think if they lose this week and go to 1-4, I think it's a done deal. I think it's a done deal. They miss the playoffs. If they somehow pull out a win, different story. But I think it would take a lot, and we'd have to see a very different Vikings team than the first 3 weeks if we're going to see a winner than this week. So that's an overreaction.
Alrighty, Jack. Sort of similar. If the Chargers don't beat the Saints in Week 5, they will not make the playoffs.
They're 1-3 now, are they?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't think they'll make the playoffs anyway, but I think a loss this week at the hands of the Saints will just confirm that. Justin Herbert has been really good so far, but in his rookie season, I can't see him putting together enough, really consistently good performances to be able to carry the team to, enough wins. I don't think that Tyrod Taylor is going to come back and start now. I think Herbert's been there for long enough now, and he's been playing well enough now that I don't think he deserves to have the starting job stripped of him in favor of Taylor. So, yeah, I don't think they'll make the playoffs. And if they lose this weekend, then I think that's going to guarantee.
The last one I got for you, Jack, is we overhyped the Cardinals coming into the season.
That's a tough one, actually, Anthony. I'm going to go with overreaction. I don't think we overhyped them. They had a lot of reason to be hyped up as a team. They did a lot of good things in the off-season, and the hype we gave them was justified. And, starting the season 2-0, just it kind of confirmed that hype. And they've lost the last two and have looked pretty average doing it, but I don't think we overhyped them. I think the amount of hype we gave them was justified based on their off-season. So I'm going to go with overreaction.
Yep, that's all we got for you.
Awesome. That is the end of my real overreaction for week 5, and it is also the end of this week's podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening to us three once again. If you haven't already, make sure you come and follow us on Instagram. That is at TouchDownUnder. That is where we post all of our podcast and non-podcast content, so make sure you check it out if you haven't. We are also on Twitter at the TDU Podcast. We upload our podcasts and podcast segments to YouTube at TouchDownUnder, and we also premiere our podcast on Facebook at TouchDownUnder. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week.